up on the throttle, victory is mine. Show you the harder the battle, harder I fight. I've come too far to quit. Stop back, I'm going in. I'm cranking up on the throttle. This is how legends are made. This is how legends are made. This is how legends are made.
Hello and welcome to our next edition of the Ships of the Line. This time we're covering the weirdest ship designs that I've been able to find and get pictures of, as well as whatever our conversation leads. I am not alone tonight. I am joined by the wonderful Sahalas.
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good noon. I guess I covered all the different time zones we might be having here in the chat today. Yeah, how are you guys doing? Are you excited for some wacky, weird history facts with Blip? So basically just Blip.
Yeah. So we've got, last time we voted for going for the weirdest and wackiest ships, or at least that's what we assumed we voted for because the voting or the straw poll didn't exactly work afterwards, but that was the clear fan favorite. I expect a lot of French pre-dreadnoughts, LOL. We can talk a little bit about the French pre-dreadnoughts, but I chose to kind of avoid them because Drakenfell has an excellent 2-hour long video on the French pre-dreadnoughts, which
Can't really
covers
compete
it.
with that.
Yeah, can't really compete at all. So do recommend going and checking out Drakenfell's French dreadnoughts. So I went out with the mission of finding things that were not French pre-dreadnoughts, though we have some French inspired ships for sure.
So the challenge for the future is to beat his dreadnought content.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So
Surely an easy task.
yeah, get a haircut, you hippie. Yeah, understandable. I do need
Again,
a haircut.
who of us?
You have any
both
idea
really
how
need a
little that
haircut.
narrows it down? Yeah.
To be
and
fair, it is quite advantageous. We have minus 10 degrees C. What's that in freedom?
minus 10 in freedom is like 10 to 15 degrees freedom.
Yeah, so it's quite cold and chill. So having a bit more wool on top of our heads is kind of nice. But yeah, before we get to the wacky history fact, you guys are probably into history, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Well, maybe you have some game questions as well, which we will also cover, but today we'll definitely be focused on the historical part. But anyway, our colleagues from PC actually made a book. Can you put me in full screen maybe?
Yep.
I don't have my hands.
The camera's backwards. But
Yeah, the camera's flipped. Imagine it's flipped. Sorry for that.
I think both of ours are flipped. as
Yeah,
well.
both of ours are flipped for technical reasons. Anyway, it's a really nice book. It has really nice artwork. And to check it out more properly, I will just post a link in chat.
Yep. So
If you are interested in all things cruisers, it's a great book with a lot of in-game, but also real footage and blueprints and plans and really nice photos and backstory. All things cruisers, basically.
yeah, it's as Legit mentioned here, it's kind of a coffee table book, which means it has really large fold-out pictures, and it the entire thing is filled with pictures. So, but it's also got lots of texts that are written by our historians, who work in their 3D modeling team, who are responsible for basically bringing all the ships to the game.
Fittingly to our current pirate content.
Yeah. So cruisers.
That's, for example,
yeah.
a one bit where it starts quite
Yeah.
early. And by the way, if you want pirate stuff, we do actually finally have the Jolly Roger flag. If you have Caprice or Le Foudre, you can do a short mission. I believe it's 3 wins. 3 wins, I believe.
Yeah, I think 3. Yeah.
And you get the Jolly Roger flag. And is this the flag stream? Flag stream?
I don't know.
Did you ever like promise or
No.
announce a flag dedicated stream? That's actually something we maybe could cover. I'm not sure.
We could just do like a best naval jacks competition.
Yeah, in general, like covering different flags, but I'm assuming it's a bit difficult because not all the artwork can be used. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be something we could look into. In general, if you have any cool ideas for wacky streams like this or more sane streams, feel free to reach out. And for Twitch chat, yes, I'm German. I think that's quite difficult to overhear.
Indeed. So,
Duck over Jolly Roger. Yeah, but you know what's even better? Potato.
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 Yeah. If you're wondering why the mustache, the office or the World Warships team in the office got together and basically did a Movember competition where basically everybody grows a mustache over the month of November, and you haven't really seen me over November, so.
Wait, only 1.3k copies? Yes, it's quite a limited run. We are not a book company. We are not in the general field of even selling any merchandise. So it's basically a campaign, and how is that called in like proper speech? Like back order, I guess. Because we will produce them like once we close it, and it's gonna close in like I think a week from now, something like this. Okay, almost 2 weeks. And anybody who got one by then, we will get working on making the books with our partner, and then they will be shipping out sometime next year. Will still be a couple months. It's not going to be a Christmas thing.
Although, if you do order it, you will get a Christmas card in the mail from us. So, so you will get something for Christmas, but you won't get the book until early next year.
Exactly.
Early or middle next year. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we do some questions, or do you want to start with the wacky history, and we can do like some segments in between?
Yeah. I think we can kind of dive into it. So,
sure. Okay.
But I guess the main question is where to start.
So guys, I know as much as you do. So I will be this like the annoying representative of chat. Asking weird questions. And if you have any game-related questions, we can do some, but let's first do some history stuff. If you have any questions about the stuff you see on stream, or any anything that fits the topic, feel free to ask. And if I see it, I will try to interrupt Blip every now and then. But I believe he has a lot of content prepared, so it will be mostly a monologue from Blip and everybody else listening. And because I saw the question a couple times, one last in-game question: would the Zao disappear in 6 days? No, Zao is here to stay.
Yeah, Zao's here to stay for both doubloons and credits, so you can get her in whatever way you prefer, and she's here indefinitely. As for who won the mustache competition, I believe it was it Arnaud or
I don't know.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I wasn't around.
Definitely not me.
Yeah, also definitely not me, but I didn't take part because bit difficult.
Yeah, so one of our public relations guys, or I think, is the winner. So let's see. So where do we want to start? So I've got ships from all nations, or almost all nations. Mostly U.S. ships because they're a lot easier to get pictures and blueprints of, especially when it comes to designs, thanks to the spring styles, which are available from the National Archives, which means that it's public domain and free to use. But we also have other things like, let's see, some Japanese projects. We got some Russian projects, some cursed carriers. Not that carriers aren't already cursed in some ways, as well as
I have no idea what's actually on it, but this page looks very interesting that you have open on your screen. So let's maybe just start with that.
All right. So let's just start with the spring styles. So U.S. Navy, starting in about the late 1900s, early 1910s, started a program that was just like, let's do a quick drawing of a ship, and we'll call it a spring styles. At the time, in fashion, there was things called, the spring styles, you had the fall styles, and basically seasonal styles for the different fashions of the year. And so the Navy borrowed the name spring styles for what these are called. Currently, only the book 1, book 3, and parts of book 4, because parts of book 4 were destroyed essentially or lost, are available, which covers basically the 1910s and the 1940s. So, and unfortunately, book 2, we believe, has all the really, really, really interesting stuff in it, and it's just gone. Nobody knows where it is. So if you happen to know where it is, or if you want to go looking for it, there's a project. But
so there's a high chance it is somewhere. It's not like lost. It's not burned or.
There's a chance that it's burned. There's a chance that it's lost. There's a chance that it's just stuck in a filing cabinet somewhere.
That is a very high chance.
Yeah, exactly. And there's
having seen some archives, there's a very high chance it is actually in some archive in the corner.
Yep. And so, and this is a website that's that hosts all of them. You can find the spring styles in a few different places, but I really like this one because it has a lot of descriptions. And so we have things like, let's start with something fun. Torpedo battleships was an entire concept throughout the 1910s.
So just to clarify, so the main armament
is torpedoes.
Are torpedoes, but a battleship hull.
Yes.
Huh.
So, so here we got like 30,000-ton ships, which for the time are relatively large, because you're looking at like 20,000 tons roughly for like dreadnought, and then like the super dreadnoughts are getting into like the 28,000 ton range. So these are very large ships with submerged torpedo armament. So like this is probably the most extreme example here, which is a 30,000 ton ship with no main battery armament and only 18 submerged torpedoes, which is pretty cursed, not going to lie.
So submerged meaning they are all launched from below.
Yeah, so if we look here on the design, you got torpedo rooms down here, which means they're all below waterline, sort of like the British battlecruisers.
Chet is saying that's a submarine.
Yeah.
It's basically a submarine that is permanently surfaced.
Yeah. And so this was a concept that just kept on kind of creeping in and popping up in the various battleship proposals through the 1910s in the U.S. Navy. And it's kind of like one of those things where it's just like it shows up, then people were like, no, that's not a good idea. And then it shows up again, and they're like, no, that's not a good idea. And so it goes through a few different variations.
So, guys, just to repeat, the designs we're discussing here, some of them we might even have in the game, I'm not sure. If we get to any of those. A lot of these are just weird, wacky designs that are also very unlikely. What happened with the page?
It's loading still.
Oh, okay. So it's not the fastest page. Maybe we're actually like DDoSing it right now by showing it.
Yeah, maybe.
So guys, if you're trying to access it as well, please not. It doesn't seem to be the strongest server. No, but to get back, we are really just discussing the historical stuff today. Tonic said in chat, VG tapes these pages to a wall and throws it out at them to decide what the next premium ship will be. We do that with some ships, but while there's a chance that anything ends up in the game, whether it's a serious ship or just like a meme ship like this one, maybe we do some event around it, who knows. But generally, there are no plans to add any of these ships to the game right now. It's just a what-if kind of thing, and we wanted to have some fun and some content for the history nerds out there.
Yeah. And so you haven't missed the USS Possible yet, but we will cover the Possible. And so, like, the torpedo battleships are essentially part of the U.S. Navy war games at the time. Basically, there were some people who were like, maybe it's a good idea, we'll try it in war games. It never really saw a ton of support. But it's just a really interesting thing because it just kind of keeps showing up over time. And so this is the blueprint you're seeing now is a version that has a quadruple gun turret for 356 millimeter guns, as well as 16 torpedo tubes. So you lost 2 torpedo tubes and gained 4 guns.
Kind of sounds like a better trade-off.
Yeah, like some of these are like less cursed than others, but yeah.
I mean, just the look of it already looks kind of like it looks very bare bones.
Yeah, like if we look for an example, this is like more sensible. You have 6 14-inch guns and like 2 turrets, so it's like kind of normal. And then you have, let's see here, 7.5 inches of belt armor, which is not a whole lot. Let's see, what's the speed? 27 knots. So for 1912, it's very, very fast, but it's just kind of like, why? It's 1912 torpedoes. Like, these torpedoes barely even work in the first place.
Details.
Yeah. It's just kind of like realistically speaking is like, what is the purpose of these ships? And so, and the spring styles are full of weird and wonderful things like this.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions in chat. Mainly, where do you find the blueprints of all ships? Like a maritime history museum, for example, but also in this case, you can just type the address, like what is it, Shipscribe?
Yeah, shipscribe.com has all these.
There is also the Dreadnought project, which has an amazing collection of all kinds of ship designs, lots of blueprints. There are various archives in the world that you can actually access. Like Wip was saying earlier, the US archives for at least the World War I, World War II ships are very accessible. It's all public domain, I believe.
Yep.
So you can just get them for free. Other archives, like I know the German ones, for example, you can browse what they have online. I believe the website is only in German. I'm not sure if it's in English, but Google Translate will help, I guess. And you can even get like huge copies, like 3-meter long blueprints sent to you for relatively cheap, like $10, $20 or something like this. Of course, that would be on top of shipping cost. I'm not sure how much that would be to the US, or if that's even possible, but I'm sure there are ways you can get your hands on them.
Yep. So
and there are plenty of more websites and indices. I guess maybe they can. Yeah, you can probably just join our Discord or also ask on Reddit. There are plenty of peeps who have quite some nice link connections and collections, and Blip, of course, included.
Yep. And so that ship that I was showing earlier with the 6 guns, that's 2 triple turrets, not sextuple turrets. Although there is a design in the spring styles with sextuple turrets. And that is one of the maximum battleships, also known as Tillman battleship designs, which are in here somewhere on the battleship page. New Mexico class, Tennessee, Colorado, South Dakota, Senator Tillman. So 24 16-inch guns and 4 sextuple turrets. So, yeah. The Tillman battleships are quite famous because they're kind of absurd. They're meant to be the maximum possible thing that the U.S. Navy could possibly order, based off of the time period. The U.S. Navy did not consider any of these seriously at all. Like, it's essentially like a senator told them to do something, so they had to do it, but they didn't take it seriously at all. These aren't even fever dreams. These are basically I wouldn't even call them fever dreams. They're just kind of a pet project in a sense, because Senator Tillman really did not like giving the Navy money, and basically asked them, show me what the maximum amount of money that you would ever ask for me from me would be, and then they had to draw that sort of there's a sort of displacement. The displacement is 70,000 tons normal displacement. I think the heavyweight displacement is not listed. So yeah.
Do you have some comparison maybe for people like me who are not that much into the technicalities? Any ship we have in the game where you have some rough idea how big it is, how much displacement they have?
So this would be 70,000 tons. Displacement is the same size as Yamato.
So
very large. So it's huge.
So the various nations kind of agreed that Yamato is kind of huge and like the
so this
more or less the limit.
This is like 20 years. Like 25 years before Yamato. So when they designed this, because this is 1916. So so we have a whole bunch of stuff here. Let's see, where do we want to go next? So let's show off some of the Lexington pre-designs. So Lexington class battlecruisers are basically the Lexington class battlecruiser cruiser changes throughout the 1910s and eventually evolves into more or less what we have in game as Constellation. And but in real life, they evolved into the Lexington class aircraft carriers because of the Washington Naval Treaty. But there are some really weird ideas that they wanted to pursue with the Lexington class. One of them being that we must have 35 knot ships. And keeping in mind, this is the 1910s, you know, like a fast ship in 1910 is like 29 knots, 28 knots.
35.
Then they wanted 35.
Okay.
So one of the sacrifices that they had to make in one of the 1915 or which one is it? The 1916 designs is that they had to go with a strange boiler arrangement that had 7 funnels. So 7 smokestacks. So if we look here,
What is this?
each one of these little circles, so these 2 big circles are cage masts, like you would see on like Colorado.
Oh, they're not funnels. Okay.
So these two big circles are not funnels, but these little circles are. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 funnels total.
So to answer Mobius' question, yes, that is what the Wargaming does have nightmares about.
Not only that, if you look closer, we have so this is essentially the U.S. Navy was getting involved with the turbo-electric propulsion system, which is essentially they use boilers to run turbines that drove electricity, and then electrical motors did your propulsion. What this allowed you to do is kind of put your boilers wherever you wanted them to be. So they were just trying different boiler arrangements, including boilers outside the protection. So if you look up here on the side view, you see boiler room, boiler room, boiler room, and then this dark gray is the belt armor. So you got parts of your citadel outside of the armor entirely. And this belt armor is just like, it's just notional. It's just an idea. It's 5 inches, which is 127 millimeter belt armor on a 33,000 ton warship.
So just to clarify, this was not built at all. It's only
No. Like, well,
only a proposal. There's
like it's a proposal that evolved into what we have as Constellation.
yeah, but like this weird wacky design. There's
Oh, yeah,
absolutely no version that was built with
No,
like unprotected boilers or
No.
a design of how many smokestacks
Seven.
can we add?
Yeah. And
Imagine
so
this getting hit by a torp. Yeah, that's exactly
yeah,
the issue. Imagine this getting hit.
yeah, it hit it
Essentially
all.
the issue.
But you're thinking about it. It's 1916. It's a 35 knot battle cruiser. Nobody's really going to have a fire control system that can even keep up with you.
Speed
So
tanker.
this is one of those literal cases of literally speed is your armor, but that would only last for about 10 years, you know? So it's sort of neither here nor there, but the USN really, really wanted to have this 35 knot like scouting force. And we'll see that again later with their scout cruiser line, which are even less protected. One other funny note on this particular design is aero defense guns. Yes. I can't zoom in any. Well, maybe I can actually. That's what. There we go. Here down in the specifications, we've got the U.S. Navy answer to anti-air defense being yes, all of the guns. So even as early as 1916, they were just like, you know, whatever will fit will go on to it. So and these are not the 16-inch guns you see later in the Lexington class. They're just the 14-inch guns and twin and triple turrets. And definitely not one of the shining moments of naval design in the U.S. Navy.
Yeah, Chet is discussing how much you would have actually seen from the mast, the rear mast especially.
Yeah, the rear mast would just be smoke. Just no visibility at all. It's kind of interesting as well because the UK actually exported one of their ship designers to work with the US during World War I. And so we basically have a series of designs here that are United States USS hoods, more or less. So he basically brought the knowledge with him that the UK was building the hood. And so he brought that knowledge with him, made some improvements and changes, and made suggestions for the U.S. Navy with basically a USS hood like ship with 12 16-inch guns, because why not have all of the guns? But it would be exceedingly huge at 53,000 tons, which is interesting. That person is Stanley Goodall. He went on to be basically the guy that designed and signed off on all of the World War II British Navy ships. So super important dude.
Yeah, just to quickly address a discussion in Twitch chat. We have quite a history-focused stream today, so we are not going to address too many game-related questions. If you need any help or any general advice, the best thing you can usually do is ask on Facebook or on Reddit or any of the other communities, or join our Discord server. I'm not sure if you're playing PC or Legends. That's not quite clear to me, but both have a Discord. For PC, it's just discord.gg/wows, and for Legends, it's just wows legends. And there are plenty of players who can help, give tips, what to play, what not to do, what to do. And also we have some like lots of history content, both on Reddit in particular and Discord, and also dedicated channels.
Cool.
All right. Sorry, I kind of interrupted you, but I see
It's all right.
quite some confusion.
No, it's I don't have like any kind of like chronological order to go in, so it's just kind of like bouncing around like what is cool to talk about. So let's see, what do we have? What else do we have going on? Let's jump around nations a little bit. So we were talking about
How far back are you actually going with the wacky designs? Just World War 1 and 2?
I
Or do you have some older ships as well? Somebody just hinted at a strange inventions like Greek fire.
I don't have I don't know the recipe for Greek fire, unfortunately.
You don't really?
No, nobody really kind of does. But,
I know that,
but it's the old meme. But yeah, the oldest thing that I have is from 1894, which is a pair of Japanese cruisers.
Let's maybe go to those.
All right. So essentially during the 1880s and 1890s, Japan was establishing their navy.
I don't know which colleague just wrote with our account, but yes. I wrote on YouTube, there are no plans to add Greek fire to the game. That is correct.
And
how about napalm? No, also no napalm.
No. So how modern are we going? They'll be just into World War II. But in the 1880s and 1890s, Japan was just establishing their navy, and they were following the French idea of jeu d'école, or the new school of naval combat, which insisted on basically a bunch of small ships being able to take on a large force like the Royal Navy, with a bunch of smaller ships like torpedo boats and things like this. And as part of that, the French exported their Admiral Émile Bertin to help the Japanese Navy design ships and make projects. And one of those things was the horrendous Matsushima class cruisers, which are cursed. So they were built in France.
What am I looking at?
You're looking at a shoe. It's.
I would rather call it floating brick, but yes.
So this is a, yeah. It's
that describes it really well. Yeah, exactly my first thought.
They called it a protected cruiser. So the idea behind this series of ships, there are two different versions of them. There's a Matsushima, which has the gun in the back of the ship, the big gun in the back of the ship,
and in the
back. Yeah. So the right side is the back of the ship. The left side is the front of the ship.
I have so many questions.
Yeah. And so there was but the sister ships that were built alongside her were the Itsukushima and Hashidate, have the gun in the front of the ship. So, and this ship, the front is the right of the ship, and the back is the rear, or the left is the rear of the ship. And so the idea was you were going to have four of these sailing together. You put these two up front, and you put these two in the rear. They only ended up building one of these, And so basically you have 4 ships, but together it's one battleship. But you have them split into 4 ships. That's the idea. The only problem is that doesn't work in reality because each ship needs to have their own fire solution. You only have 1 gun salvos from each ship, so you can't really aim them very well. And the other thing is that these are like 4,500 ton ships with 12.6-inch guns. Well, a 12.6 inch gun, which was excessively recoiling for these ships, and it took them about an hour to reload.
An hour to reload one shot.
Yeah. So they participated and actually kind of led the 1890 late 1890s battle of the Yalu River against China, and so it was in the first Sino-Japanese War, where they were kind of involved in it. Matsushima was the lead ship in the battle and took over half the casualties in the battle that Japan took. And it was a several hour long battle, and Matsushima managed to fire her main gun 4 times, and the Itsukushima managed to fire her main gun 5 times.
So each of those were actually built as we can see here.
Yes.
And in this design, they at least did it right and put the gun in the front.
Yes. And so, they were...
So guys, there is a chance, but I can't promise you to ever see those in the game.
And it was basically...
Yes, Mobius, apparently so.
And these ships were just not that good. It's not a good idea. It's essentially, if you're going to spend the money building 4 cruisers to make 1 battleship, might as well make 1 battleship and have an actually good ship rather than 4 not so good ships. And so with the 4th ship, which was Aketsushima, they actually completely redesigned it and made it like a normal cruiser. And this made Emile Bertin, the guy who designed these ships, very mad because they weren't following his ideas. And this started the sort of the fall of the Junicole in Japan and the rise of the British naval influence in Japan is essentially around these ships.
Just to clarify, so these were from 1890s?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it was quite early when it comes to what we would consider proper warships nowadays. So yeah, it's quite literally a definition or a prime example of learning by doing, I guess.
Yeah, and you're learning the hard way. And,
yeah, like Ted is saying, they definitely learned their lesson throughout various conflicts.
Yeah, well, these did get used in the Russo-Japanese War, but they were a secondary role. They did see, or Matsushima saw action at the Battle of Yellow Sea, didn't do that much, but Matsushima and Itsukushima were involved in the Battle of Tsushima, where Itsukushima was involved directly in the sinking of the famous Kamchatka, or rather infamous Kamchatka. So you can blame Tsukushima for that. And they were also involved in engaging the Oleg and the Aurora as they were kind of leading the battle. So, yeah, they did do something, but I guess sinking the Kamchatka is kind of more of a mercy killing than really a notable combat achievement. Another fun factoid of these ships is that the main battery gun has less range than the secondary battery guns. So the main battery gun has a maximum range of 8,000 meters. The secondary battery guns have a maximum range of about 9,000 meters. So there's a whole kilometer there where the secondary battery will have a longer engagement range, which is just, the icing on the cake here.
So that's like a bit more than half a mile.
No, that's the difference.
The difference.
Yeah, a bit more than half a mile.
1 mile is like 1.6 kilometers.
Yep. So, yeah. So these things were quite not a great idea. And so you see them go from building ships like this into building ships like Mikasa, and going on forward from Mikasa into like the Kawachi and Congo class. So not the greatest ever idea.
I had to start somewhere.
And so let's see. Where do we go from here?
Mobius just said he found some IRL images of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So apparently they look even more cursed.
Yeah. So like if we we can pull it up on the Wikipedia here. But, well, actually, no, not all those images are usable. But
yeah, we have some material that we can use, but we of course have to be a bit careful what we show on stream. A company after all, so you will probably be able to find a lot more like perspectives and drawings, and also in some cases some photos or paintings. And there's a surprising number of material out there.
Yeah. Here's a good question. Was there ever a period in military naval history when armor development outpaced naval guns? Or did any nation focus on survivability over offensive specifications? So some navies chose survivability at some points. So the UK definitely just went for survivability over offense with their King George V class. But in terms of outpacing naval guns, in terms of armor development, that very rarely happened, except for the possible, like when the Ironclad first came out. So like basically HMS Warrior basically could not be sunk by anything for at least a couple years. And also towards the end of the 1800s, whenever Krupp armor came in, there was essentially a short period where basically you couldn't penetrate armor larger than 6 inches in thickness. So like at the Battle of Tsushima, no armor, like armor belt thicker than 6 inches of armor was penetrated. So you could realistically, if you designed your ship well, you could design a ship that theoretically could not be sunk without some extenuating circumstances. At the Battle of Jutland, no armor belt thicker than 8 or 9 inches was penetrated. So that like there was reasonable times where armor was effective, but you couldn't effectively cover the entire ship in armor.
So just like in game, if you couldn't really penetrate the armor belt, well, just aim for the superstructures. Or, I mean, I guess in general back then, you were just aiming in the general direction of the enemy and hope you hit something.
Yeah.
So wasn't really that precise anyway. Must have been quite a lengthy and frustrating process to actually hit anything at all.
Yup. So let's see. Shall we move on to...
Yeah, we just got somebody in Twitch who was saying good morning from aboard USS New Jersey. While USS New Jersey is probably not something I would classify as a wacky design. Do we have anything close to that, maybe?
Close to New Jersey? Let's
see. Any wacky battleships?
We have a U.S. wacky battleship.
Yeah, that's what I meant. U.S.
Yeah. So basically in the 1920, whenever kind of like during the prelude to the Washington Naval Treaty, the U.S. Navy wanted to investigate how do we meet our lofty goal of having like an absurd amount of battleships that President Wilson wants, and B, how do we afford doing that, as well as C, what happens whenever we have our naval treaty that we're sort of kind of getting towards working on. So what do we do? And so they came up with a series of small battleship designs, which are like basically dreadnought-sized pre-dreadnoughts. And so these are like 20,000 ton pre-dreadnought battleships with like 1920s specifications. So if we look here at this one, we have we got 2 or 4 total 16-inch guns and 2 twin turrets. We've got turreted 6-inch guns as secondaries, and a very, very compact ship on 21,500 tons that's capable of like 18 knots. So this is just very much of a small, tiny battleship. They have a few different ones here that are on the Spring Style site. Let me see if I can find them real quick. Small battleship, not selected for construction. The largest small battleship is 37,000 tons. Small battleship. Keeping in mind,
than small, yeah.
keeping in mind, this is like 1919. So 1919, we've got ships like Hyuga and Fuso, and the Queen Elizabeth class battleships. You've got the Colorados are like starting to like get more or less launched, and so these are all like already reaching into the 30,000 tons. And this is a 37,000 ton small battleship in 1919, but it has 29 knots with a grand total of 4 guns.
YouTube chat is saying it's a Graf Spee type of thing.
Kind of. It's more like let's go back to pre-dreadnoughts. More of a scuffle ship than a battleship. Yeah, it's kind of, let's build a small second class or third class battleship where that like on the concept of kind of a pre-dreadnought but with more main battery focus. No, these are 16-inch guns, Brian. So these are 16-inch 50 caliber guns. Yeah. Why? I have no idea who signed off this idea. Massive Mikasa. Yeah. It's huge, but like.
Wait, so was it just a design, or was it actually built?
These are all actual.
Okay.
These are just designs. Basically, they were thinking like, what do we do if we have to build very small ships? And so, if we go over to the Dreadnought project, the U.S. Navy was not the only one doing this. So,
Oh no.
the Germans were also doing this.
Oh no.
Yeah. And so, Dreadnought Project, by the way, guys, fantastic website run by a couple great historians who are working over in the UK. So they've given us the ability to use this as long as we give them a shout out. And so this one you might recognize as like Prince Ruprecht, for example. But this one, no, that's Seaton.
Almost.
Maybe it's this one.
To
No,
be
it's-
fair, Seaton looks a bit wacky as well.
No, it's a 4552. Yeah, here we go. So this is a 45,000 ton Mikasa, basically. Why? I have no idea.
Because.
Yeah. So this is essentially like, basically you have 45,000 tons displacement. You have 30 knots speed, 33.5 knots, if I remember right. No, 30 and a half knots. Over here, got to read old German. Sorry. Yeah, and
If it helps you in any way, I also have a hard time reading like most of that.
yeah,
And the old German like cursive style is kind of something.
yeah. So
But yeah, it says like
Yeah.
for large, for fast capital ships,
yeah,
capital
yeah.
warships.
Studienwerf, which
Yeah.
is like study of.
Yes, it's like study design idea basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so you get 420 millimeter guns and 12 150 millimeter guns on this ship. So, not that strong of a battery, main or secondary battery, to be honest, for the time period. And so the U.S. was not the only one kind of doing this sort of thing to different degrees. Let's see, what else do we have here?
So because you just clicked on the Seaton one, which we actually do have in the game. Are there any in your collection that we do actually have in the game?
We could do Duncan.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
let's go.
go ahead and pull up Duncan on your screen.
Oh,
'Cause I don't have any drawings for Duncan. So.
Yeah. Wait.
So, what about the Italians? So, I don't have any pictures that I can share with you, but the Italians in the 1920s had a guy come up with some carrier ideas. So, it's an Italian aircraft carrier that is flexible. So, they made an Italian carrier in 3 different parts. Basically, you have a bow, you have a stern, and then you have a midsection, and then in between the bow, stern, and midsection, you had 2 joints, and the whole thing was flexible. Flex joints. They thought that would be a good idea to be able to get a more consistent landing platform, or other kinds of hydrodynamic benefits, which is just all kinds of cursed. I don't know why you would want to have a flexible landing ship. I can only imagine landing in while one of the flex joints is in a trough or something, and so you have a landing deck that's like this. It seems like a really terrible idea, but somebody thought that it was like relevant, so they made drawings for it, which is incredibly terrible.
All right. I don't know. Is this one the right screen? Yes,
Yeah, there we
that's
go.
the right one. Sorry, I actually didn't have it. To
Had
be
to buy it real quick.
yeah, I had to buy it really quick, and I didn't want to like flex that I just converted some XP. Didn't want to rub it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna stick to my German battle cruisers. I mean, we just talked about Seaton, so yeah, more of my thing. But yeah, do you want with or without UI?
Yeah, go ahead without.
Actually, feel free to just take my controller. I guess it's
Link.
easier to show.
Yeah. So basically, the G3 class design I would categorize. What is the ship in your thumbnail, by the way? Our thumbnail is Duncan. So
This ship.
and so this ship, yeah. So I would categorize G3 and N3 into the weird ships category because I mean nobody else really tried this arrangement, and to some people it's ugly, to some people it's like functional. The thing is though is that had they built this ship, it would have been really really fantastic. At least in terms of its paper stats, assuming that it's well built and things are thought out and laid out.
Good luck.
Yeah. But like if you look at it from its on paper stats, you've got a 12-inch angled belt. You've got anywhere up to 8 inches of deck armor. You've got 16-inch guns. You don't see this combination of stats until basically the Iowa class battleships 20 years later. And so on paper, these would be an excellent design. It's just they're huge and it looks weird.
I mean, that in general, it just looks like there's something off.
And I can't imagine what it would be like standing in the bridge whenever you fire a broadside. Like,
It's a bit close, yeah.
yeah, it must feel like you're inside of a church bell. Like, I have no idea. And so whenever they designed Nelson, they decided to put them all forward instead.
How was it actually designed? Did they also have like a battle command bridge, so to speak, like that one that is hidden somewhere in the Citadel part?
No. So the British were basically becoming more and more against having a conning tower, as we call it. They like basically the armored cone. Where basically they found that even if they had them, nobody ended up using them because they wanted to be able to see what's going on. And also it's just kind of more of a show of like, I don't care what's going to happen to me, follow my example. And so I don't believe the G3s had a conning tower in their design. They may have, but even if they had one, they probably wouldn't use it. And also another point there is that even if you're living in or you're inside a 17-inch armored conning tower, if a shell hits you, like from another battleship and hits that conning tower, the concussion from the shell alone is going to kill you anyway.
No, I meant like below deck.
Oh, below deck.
Yeah. Like where you could go in case of getting fired at very heavily, or maybe also to not stand next to the blast and experience how a bell must feel like.
Yeah, if you're in the bridge, you pretty much have to be in the bridge during combat.
Okay.
Like elsewhere, you're going to be below deck whenever you're in combat, unless something emergency happens. There is going to be, of course, a steering station inside the stern, and maybe somewhere else in the ship, as a backup in case your main one gets shot out, and as well as manual steering. But the real question is, why in the world would you design a ship like this? And so people ask me this all the time, and ask others about this all the time. Essentially, the reason you would do this is to both concentrate, so make it smaller, and basically make it smaller and lighter, your Citadel spaces, especially for your magazines. So when it comes to your weight in armor, your belt's armor is not really that expensive in terms of weight, because it doesn't cover that much area, but your deck armor is very expensive. So increasing 1 inch of deck armor is going to be like 4 times the weight of increasing your belt armor by 1 inch, for example. So just because it covers so much more area of the ship. So if you reduce that amount of area by making it smaller and all together that you have to cover with your heaviest deck armor, you can save weight elsewhere. And so the way that they designed G3 and the Nelsons, if you can actually, I don't know if the armor scheme will actually show it, perhaps. Well, you can see it with the deck armor here. Essentially, all the magazines have the heaviest protection, and then they went lighter on the protection for the engine spaces because this allowed them essentially to save weight and concentrate on what will kill the ship immediately. If you get hit in the machinery spaces, you're going to have a bad day, but at least your day's not going to end.
Good point, yeah.
And so they kept this priority with basically all their designs going forward from Nelson into the KGVs and the Lions and the Vanguards. Essentially, the magazines protected as much as possible, and then machinery protected less so. Question here: was redundancy as important to other nations as it was to the USA? Yes. Basically, almost all nations had redundant systems, especially in their battleships. The U.S. went a little bit overkill in some of their fire control redundancy. The UK did as well with Vanguard. Vanguard had like 2 separate fire control stations with full fire control suites in different parts of the ship. So, so redundancy is a big deal for everything because you're going to lose parts of your ship whenever you're in combat. Also,
I like this question here, Prince. But what's the most well-known never-built design that is currently in game?
most well-known never-built design that is currently in game.
And I guess we can go for that or for one that is wacky, which might be actually the one we're looking at right now.
Yeah, this is probably the wackiest design that's in game. So most well-known, probably Montana or Friedrich de Grosse.
Both not really wacky.
Yeah. In terms of not built, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, is the N3 and O3 designs in game? So O3 is Nelson. So O3 is in the game. N3 is not in the game. N3 basically take this, remove one of the funnels, and actually it might have both of the funnels, but basically take this and you slow it down to 23 knots and make the guns 457 millimeter, and it's going to be the same more or less layout than this.
So there's a chance.
Yeah. The nation's experiments with capital ships that utilize small 5 to 8 inch but numerous main battery guns. Imagining a battleship packed with Atlanta guns. Saturation and reload over mass down range. So, yes and no. The reason that you wouldn't want to do that is because the sheer maximum range capability of these guns is just not enough. But this is actually the concept that gave us basically the pre-Dreadnought battleships. It was essentially you have your main guns, which will do the killing blow at close range. But at any other ranges, since you're not going to be able to have the rate of fire to actually hit something with the pre-Dreadnought, like Mikasa, you have your secondary battery guns just burn the target to the ground, basically. So let's see.
I mean, I guess Atlantico is kinda... Well, actually, it's even larger already with the secondaries. Never mind.
Yeah. Well,
but that's pretty close to taking a battleship and strapping like a cruiser on the left and the right.
Yeah. So pretty much Atlantico secondary guns. Yeah. So if you want battleships like that, you're going to be wanting to look at pre-dreadnoughts. And so a lot of pre-dreadnoughts have very heavy secondary batteries, like Atlantico, basically. So you have some that will even have 8-inch secondary batteries, and some that even have secondary batteries that are the same size as the main guns, but are different calibers. So let's see. What do we want to cover next? Well, I just clicked on something, so here we go. U.S. Scout cruisers. So going back to that 35-knot cruiser concept, again in the 1910s. So basically fastest ships that are this size. So the U.S. Navy wanted their 35-knot cruiser scout screen because they envisioned basically having their 35 knot cruisers go find the enemy, and then their 21 knot slow battleships can go be the anvil and get in front of the enemy and do battle. But you needed to be able to find somebody, so you needed a sonic ship that can go really, really fast. And so the no protection, yeah, that's exactly why I chose this particular version. So if you look here on at the bottom left of the screen here, remember this is a scout cruiser that is a 15,000 ton scout cruiser, so it's a very, very large cruiser, the size of Neptune, basically. 35 knot cruiser with 4 14-inch guns, 356 millimeter guns, and no protection, no armor whatsoever.
But you were saying it earlier, right? It's basically so fast, it's really difficult to track.
Yeah.
So that alone would make it very, very, very difficult to actually ever hit it. So
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily need armor.
yeah, you literally have your case of your speed is your armor and it's your only armor.
And the question is, would the 35 knots have worked out for the whole time, or just like short boosts? I guess we will never know. Or it wasn't built, right?
It wasn't built, no.
Yeah.
Actually, does it say whether or not this would be oil or coal firing?
Oil, fuel,
Oil fuel, coal fuel.
both, I guess.
Actually, let me pull it up on this screen here. Which one is this? 61.
Is it oil or fuel? Or coal? Yes.
Well, it matters because it's only oil. So here, if we pull it up.
Okay.
Ahoy!
Not that one. Oops, sorry. So if we look here on this on the screen here, so I have it where you can
I don't think
zoom in.
that's the right one, yeah.
So it's only oil. So basically, the difference between having oil and coal is that if you're oil firing, that
do
means
this
you
way.
can basically run on oil firing as long as your engines will keep going. So, but coal requires men to shovel the coal into the boilers, which means that you can only go as long as your men can go.
Now, I was rather thinking if it would overheat, like or like wear down too much or something
Yeah,
like that.
like
Because that's a common issue, right? There are like max speeds, and they're like speeds that you could go to, but you really want to avoid unless you really have to, because you know afterwards you can put the ship in port and get it repaired.
Yeah. So it's like you could do 35 knots, but you wouldn't normally do 35 knots. But if you're able to do 35 knots, it means you're probably going to be able to do 30 knots even better. And so and keeping in mind, like, this is being built at the time where the fastest destroyers are also only are able to do 35 knots on a very, very calm day. And so the idea is that, like, if this can do 35 knots on a calm or on, a heavy weather day, it can just run down destroyers no matter what. And so it's, that was kind of, they had a really mixed concept. They did 21 different drawings for this scout cruiser concept. These are just some of them. So you have anywhere up to like 26,000 tons with 16-inch guns and 6 inches of belt armor, which is 152 millimeters. And all of them are 35 knots, basically. These eventually kind of get wrapped into the whole Lexington battlecruiser concept, which was also 35,000 or 35 knots. But one of the notable things about the scout cruisers, if I can find my notes on it, is basically by 1915, U.S. Navy, whenever they're looking at these scout cruisers, is basically U.S. Navy is like, we have 3 scout cruisers. And since 1901, we have the General Board has said we need 34 scout cruisers, and only 14 scout cruisers were requested from Congress, and Congress only authorized the construction of 3. So by 1915, they're just kind of like, we need something and we need it now. And so they go through all of these design drawings and then never end up getting any of them until the 20s. And basically, eventually, they get to the Omaha class and the Lexington class, and then they only get the Omahas and they don't get the Lexingtons.
as an attempt.
Yeah.
Quick question that is more general, but also about history. Will Wargaming ever consider collabs with YouTube historians like Drakenifel and Dr. Alexander Clark?
Yeah.
And we actually did already collab with them. Sometimes also just talk to them about some history facts. But we have the series that is mainly being streamed on the PC Warships Twitch channel, which is Armchair Admirals. I think there's also one coming up, no? Like sometime the next month, which is basically also like this, but usually with some guests like the two aforementioned historians or also some others, and just talking ships and talking history and like very specific topics like certain battles or certain designs. So if you ever wanna join for that, we sometimes do restream it to Legends as well. But it's mainly a PC activity. Usually, you can also ask some questions ahead of time, and they might get covered in like the 3 to 4 hour monsters that these streams turn into.
Yep.
That's usually the issue, having like 2, 3, 4 really, really passionate people talking about history. There's so much to talk about. But yeah, just keep an eye on the Warships portal, warships.com or warships.eu. They're usually being announced there.
Yeah.
Do you know when the next one is happening?
I think it might be next week.
I believe so as well, but I'm not fully sure. I will look it up. And
So-
maybe it's already announced.
Yeah, so I got some question backlog here. It's well recorded that Rodney damaged its own deck as well as some plumbing and other internals, firing broadsides at Bismarck. Are there any other ships that damaged themselves like that? Almost every ship essentially is capable of damaging itself with its main battery guns. It is dependent on the situation whether or not that is worth it. Because there's basically going to be some angles where if you shoot straight over the bow, you're going to damage whatever's below your guns. That's just the way it is. And that's just some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, is kind of the situation. Except that the people dying is just the deck planks. And so, which is why whenever you see like training shoots or like practice shooting salvos and things like that, it's almost always directly over the side or at an angle over the side, so that they're damaging as little of the ship as they possibly can while doing their training shoots. This is why you see like in the 1980s, all the Iowa class battleship firing footage is directly over the side because there's nothing under the guns to be damaged. And that's why it's done that way. And so basically there's always this compromise between what is my best firing angle and what is my best firing angle without damaging the ship. And then when is it worth using that angle in combat, which if you're in combat, doesn't matter what damage you do to yourself. It's more important to damage the enemy. So question, how many salvos can a battleship shoot in that time before the ammo is gone? Depends on the battleship. But most of the time, you're going to have between about 80 to 150 rounds of ammunition per gun, which means you have about 80 to 100 rounds or 150 salvos of full broadside salvos. But often, they would split their salvos in half, so you have half salvos, so you could double that amount. But you only get 4 guns at a time.
How does that work with triple turrets?
With triple turrets, you'll fire either a group of 6 or a group of 5 and group of 4. Basically using like middle and central turrets in various combinations. Wasn't there a scaled up Atlanta class in the USN Design Archive? Basically there is. That's in the Spring Styles Volume 3, which turns into kind of what we have as Sejong in the game.
So scaled up as in like basically Minotaur but from the US?
Yeah, well that's Worcester. But it like
so not Worcester.
like Sejong.
Oh.
So if we look here,
I always forget they are basically just the whole line of Atlantas, yeah.
Yeah, so if you hear 5-inch cruiser concepts, so if you look at 5-inch 54 dual purpose cruiser design A, so this is basically Sejong. Yeah, so it's a scaled up Atlanta. So 6,000 tons is not really scaled up that much, but yeah.
Sounds kind of cute, yeah.
Okay. Are there any Alaska designs with 16-inch guns? So go to cruiser, And then all the Alaska. So we got here 38,000 ton cruiser with 12 12-inch guns, 9 12-inch guns, 12 8-inch guns, 6 12-inch guns, 8-inch guns, 12-inch guns. However, there is a Iowa class battleship design where it basically was a very, very large cruiser with 16-inch guns, and it was 12 16-inch guns at the time.
What,
it's
an
like-
Iowa but cruiser?
Yeah, it's like a really, really, really early Iowa class because it was basically the Iowas were designed to deal with cruisers and the Congos.
So it was basically an Iowa, but like scaled down, or was it just like it had no armor? Or like
Yeah, basically no armor, all
Okay.
speed and weapons at the time.
back to speed tanking.
Yep. But in the 1940s, you can't speed tank. So
So we just had a PC player who was a bit confused about which channel this is. This is the console channel, but had a small discussion on Twitch about submarines. Before any Legends players are getting out their pitchforks, no, there are no submarines coming to the game. We're not announcing anything. There are no plans right now.
but
But there are definitely some wacky submarine designs.
indeed.
And because this is more focused on history and not what we have in game, we figured let's go through some sub designs as well.
Yeah.
Which one is it and why is it Surcouf?
It's not Surcouf.
Oh.
It's the American take on Surcouf.
Ah, fair enough.
So, 4 proposed design for a heavily armed cruiser submarine, none of which were chosen or selected for construction. One in particular is the type number 2, armored, here, which is so submarines there are no plans for submarines, but they're interesting to look at. And this is one of the ones that the U.S. Navy decided, this might be a good idea in 1920. And basically having a cruiser submarine. So you have 8-inch guns in twin turrets on a submarine hull, which is, very strange. I mean, Surcouf had 2 8-inch guns, so that's kind of notable. I think it was the X2 or the M2 had a 1 12-inch gun in the Royal Navy. Nope, we're going to go with 8-inch guns.
So I said earlier it looked like a brick. No, this looks like a brick.
And not only that, these are up here are hangar tubes. This is also a hybrid submarine. So basically, if you were to take this and put it into PC, it would be both heavy cruiser, submarine, and a hybrid.
So that like
It carries 4 aircraft.
hangar tubes. So it would just like there would be like fold wing aircraft
Yeah, fold wing aircraft that
stacked
you would
into the hull that you could pull out with a crane, and then they could like how do they launch?
yeah, basically like that. Yeah,
Did they have like swimmers and they were like taking off from the sea? Or?
I'm not sure they got that far into the concept.
Oh,
but-
okay, that was that early. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just like let's put it in.
Yeah.
No idea how it works, but let's just put it in.
So
How do they keep the turrets from flooding when going underwater?
very carefully would be my answer. There are some things you can do in terms of engineering. First of all, is basically making it to where this sort of submarine would not be able to dive very deep at all, and so it would be so you wouldn't have to watertight seal it like you would need to do for like I don't know a modern submarine, but basically you use a combination of rubber seals and as well as enclosed spaces to do it.
I mean, it needs to be relatively tight in any way because, well, it needs to withstand the pressure from firing those.
Yeah. So you have here. Let's see what else we got here. So we got diesel engines. We've got driving generators. So diesel electric propulsion. 13,500 tons. So this is larger than any cruiser in World War II, basically. Or sorry, any cruiser in World War One, and almost any cruiser in World War II.
What year is that design from?
1920.
Oh.
And also, it's armored. It's like this thing is totally armored against enemy guns. So you also have torpedoes, bow and stern, or 6 in the bow, 2 in the stern, for 8 torpedo launchers. Let's see what the armor details is. Again, general dimensions. Wait. It doesn't go into the armor thickness. Hang on. can't remember what the armor. Where the
Twitch
armor.
chat is
Here
saying
it
I
is.
also noticed there's no AA gun on this design.
Yeah, no aero defense guns, 2 4-inch anti-aircraft.
Oh.
We do have anti-aircraft guns.
Wherever they are not in the drawing.
Yeah, they're not in the drawing, but that's in the specifications. And so
Maybe they could also like just be like lifted out of the tubes. Like you surface and you have to manually lift them out and like put them on top.
yeah. Oh man. So yeah, the thickness of the main belt is in some U.S. measurement. I think that might be pounds. So like 90 pounds over 40 pounds. I'm not sure what that means in terms of normal thickness. But
Now
we
the
got.
question is, how much ammunition can this Hulk carry? Is that actually in the specification?
I doubt it. Doesn't look like it.
Sounds like again a matter of they didn't get that far.
Yeah. Battery armament. It only says the weight of the battery armament. Doesn't ammunition 275. So if you want to figure out what 8 torpedo tubes and 8-inch guns divided by 275 tons worth of ammunition is, be my guest. But I'm not sure what that would be. Probably in the region of like 50 to 100 rounds per gun would be my guess.
No, this is not coming to Legends.
No. Nope.
Also, I have no idea if it's coming to PC. Maybe.
I have
Who
no
knows?
idea.
Can't speak for PC. Ask them. We don't have any plans right now to have subs. So
Yep.
if that changes, like, okay, I'm gonna say something that will probably make me not that popular, but if there are subs, I would be most interested in these kind of designs.
Yeah. Gun subs.
Because you cannot really dive. It's like it's more like a stealth mode, right? And like I like these, like it gives this vibe of like a glass cannon. Like you just dive, go up somewhere, shoot, and either get shot and sink very quickly, or you can actually like do some fun gameplay. I don't know. It sounds kind of funny. I'm also really like looking forward if I don't know if PC has Surcouf, but I guess sooner or later they might be experimenting with stuff like this. Like guys, I have absolutely no idea about PC. I haven't been playing PC for ages, so I'm probably more out of date than you guys are. But yeah, this stuff would be something I think has some potential.
Yeah.
And of course they can like balance it and stuff, right? And the advantage would be we could even make the planes work, I guess, because it's a game.
Yeah. This
But
is the weird one.
Again,
here.
I don't want to scare you guys. We don't plan to add this.
Yeah. So like
Wait, what's that now?
this is another one of them. So this is
What's the big thing on the left? Like in the rear.
oh that's an aircraft catapult.
So
Yeah.
does it also have an internal hangar, or would it
Yes.
just sit on top?
Yes, it has an hangars here. So this is the cross section. So you have
This looks so wacky. Yeah.
so you have at least three, maybe four pressure chambers, because you got crew quarters, main control room, radio, etc., and 3 different crew chambers. Which, mind you, having 3 different pressure chambers on a submarine in this time period is very strange, considering that and also considering that the largest submarines ever built, the Typhoon class or the Akula class, or basically, the Hunt for Red October submarine only had 2 pressure chambers, and that thing is the submerged displacement of a battleship. So this one has at least 3, maybe 4, or maybe 5 if you include the hangars. Yeah, it's cursed.
For a split second, I thought they actually had submarine hybrids on PC, but no, it's Imagine If, yeah.
Yeah, no.
And yeah, I think it was I-400.
Yeah, I-400
Yeah.
was the
That
Surcouf
was-
also had an airplane on it. So
Who?
Surcouf.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, Surcouf
I
had an
didn't know.
airplane.
I just know, like, it's one of the only, like, wacky designs where I'm like, guys, if we ever add this, this would be cool. I would be actually looking forward to trying this.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to make that work, or if you could even make that work in the game. So
Yeah.
So it would be a hybrid sub cruiser, heavy cruiser. Ah, yeah, hybrid is already covering the plane. So like a What role would that even be? What would you classify?
I have no idea.
Like, what would you need this for?
Yeah, this would be insane.
A
Yeah,
DD hybrid of Fletcher that launches an aircraft.
but
I mean,
again,
that kind of makes sense that you could launch an aircraft as a destroyer, so you could get like better spotting.
yeah,
That even has a use case.
yeah,
Like,
the U.S. made a couple destroyers like that. The USS Pringle, the USS Halford, and I think it was the USS Mayo. Yes, we had a destroyer named Mayo, like mayonnaise. Of course, it was named after an admiral whose last name was Mayo. But
so was the admiral named after mayonnaise, or mayonnaise named after the?
I don't know.
Yes,
but-
with Army knife at sea, but yeah, that usually means it's not good at anything either. So that's the issue.
But the Americans weren't the only ones designing cruiser submarines. We have the German one.
No. I also like how you can immediately tell it's a German blueprint because there's way too much to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the Project 50 submarine. On the Dreadnought Project webpage, they have the whole design here. There's also a YouTube video by H.I. Sutton, who is like a submarine defense analyst on YouTube, where he goes in to detail about this design and actually drew like a cutout version of it that is a little bit more legible than this is. Yeah, so this is what...
And this, just quickly, because there were also questions earlier on how to get these things. As far as I understand, they do actually have even bigger resolutions of these scans, right?
This is the huge resolution version. So,
Okay.
On the Dreadnought Project, these are all huge resolution, and then on the Spring Styles, they're all pretty big resolution.
Because I know, like, for example, in the German archives, we once checked the original blueprint for Scharnhorst.
Yeah.
And that is like 3 meters long, like
Yeah, these things
more than 9 feet.
These things cover entire like imagine like CEO boardroom meeting table. It'll cover the entire thing.
Yeah. So that's why they are so detailed, because you can actually you have to actually zoom in quite a lot because it's huge.
Yeah. So we got here basically German cruiser submarine.
Guys, again, we're just going through this because they're really wacky designs.
Yeah, not because they're coming, just because they're cool.
Like, as far as I know, PC doesn't even have something like this.
Yeah.
Again, correct me if I'm wrong if they suddenly added them, but I'm not aware of any such stuff. Like, the only things they have is like the normal thing that many submarines had, which was like a small gun on top.
Yeah. So in World War, this is a World War I design. And so in World War I, the largest combat submarines that were in use were the K-class submarines of the Royal Navy, which were steam-powered submarines that are kind of comedic for being terrible.
Wouldn't that be super loud?
Yes and yeah.
Yes and yeah.
Well, like sonar also wasn't that good at the time.
Yeah.
It did exist, but it wasn't that good. And so this is kind of the German take on it, except it's 60% larger than the largest combat submarine in World War One. So it's huge. It has 3 different kinds of propulsion. It has boiler steam propulsion here. You got diesel propulsion here for reasons, probably for running a generator, which powers your battery propulsion over here. For submerged propulsion.
So it's basically a hybrid EV, because before EV was a thing.
Yes. And so, and instead of the K-class, they have a fixed funnel here, which is probably a better idea than what they had on the K-class, which was like a collapsing funnel that ended up just flooding the engine rooms. And each one of the boilers is in its own compartment. So it's
it sounds like this really stereotype for any German designs, where it's just overly complicated.
Oh yeah.
To the max.
Oh yeah.
It's like, why easy if we can do it the hard way? That will probably not work, and we waste a lot of time on it.
Yeah, multiple decks. You got ladders and stuff going through all of this. So you got multiple decks in the ship. You got a torpedo room in the rear. You got a torpedo room at the front, like normal, as expected. But there's also this really strange torpedo room here, which we have an overhead view down here on the platform deck.
Yeah.
Which is a submerged broadside torpedo, kind of broadside torpedo launcher. 1 second.
Bless you.
And basically, it's a torpedo launcher that you can like seal into the outside of the ship, and then you can unseal it and then reload from the front. So it's like muzzle loading torpedo launcher thingamajig that shoots out the side of the ship. Because basically, this thing was going to be so huge that if you came across an enemy ship, there's no guarantee at all that you'll be in a good position to fire at it from the bow or the stern. So that you need to be able to shoot out the side. So they designed this monstrosity airlock torpedo tube thingamajig.
Again, way too many moving parts.
Yeah, and basically it's like a muzzle loading torpedo launcher. Drakenafel actually talks about this in his most recent dry dock episode. And yeah, it's just insane, and it's so the document is so detailed because they were actually going to build one of these or one or two of these. It's kind of undetermined whether or not they started building them or not, but they at least ordered them and were getting ready to. Because basically they were wanting a really long-range submarine for commerce rating, and the best way to do that was to stick a boiler in it.
So we had a question in chat. Maybe was the diesel engine directly connected to the shaft, or was it also just for generating electricity, and then the actual drive system was all battery powered?
So here we've got the diesel engine room here. It looks like it's not directly connected. So basically you have your diesel engines. You've got a connection to, can't read what that is, but it says 800 kilowatts. So these are electricity generating turbines. And so then there's no shafts running aft at all. So these are just for recharging the batteries.
Yeah, it says Ladedynamos, like generator basically.
Yeah. So
yeah,
800 kilowatt generators with 1200 PS diesel engines, which is the German measurement for horsepower.
Yeah. PS is just Pferdestärken, which is horsepower, quite literally.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then you got your battery rooms back here. So.
And no, there are no plasma cannons. They're working on it.
And so you got 4 6-inch guns. You got an assortment of torpedo armament. And a reserve torpedo back here, because why not have a reserve torpedo on the external? Yeah, it's quite strange overall.
Reserve torpedo externally? What?
Yeah, that's quite common. Basically, you carry a torpedo on the back of the ship. So, like if you're like on the surface, just waiting on a target to come in, and you've used a torpedo, you can move the torpedo from the outside into the ship for a reload.
Okay.
It's basically storage space that would not be used otherwise. But it didn't.
I thought it was literally like hanging on the outside.
Yeah. So
it sounded like
reserve torpedoes. Yeah, it's this thing. I love this blueprint a lot. It's insane. But it's so German.
yeah.
Yup. So let's
German over engineering TM. Yes, Hunter.
But let's run on over to the other side of the globe, and talk about
Australia.
Not quite Australia, but Japan. So in Japan, and basically before the Washington Naval Treaty in 1921 bans battleship construction for 10 years. And so when in 1930, people were like, well, if there's not a new or extension on the treaty, we have to get ready to build battleships. So Japan was like, well, we're going to have to replace the Congo class. And so we're going to come up with designs for a replacement for the Congo class battleships. And so they have 2 of their naval ship designers, Yuzuru Hiraga, who is their most famous battleship designer, who designed Nagato, the Yamagis, all these ships. And he was involved in the design of the Yamato. They have him versus Fujimoto Kikuo, I think is his name. But basically, you have Fujimoto versus Hiraga in a competition against each other. Fujimoto comes up with this weird design, which I got these designs from the University of Tokyo library. which and basically University of Tokyo Library has a whole collection of Hiraga associated documents called the Hiraga collection. Just let me find my notes on this. Sorry.
How do you get them? Like if
You basically have to go to University of Tokyo archive, Google Translate, and find it.
okay, so it is online accessible.
Yeah, it's
you
online.
just need to.
You just have to have some patience, use some Google Translate, and figure it out. And so I can't really zoom in on it at all, but it's a very strange ship. You've got 9 16-inch guns in a pretty traditional arrangement, 3x3, but you've got secondary battery guns on the bow in turrets. Here. You have 2 turrets here and 2 turrets back here.
I'm just thinking how we can point or zoom in. We
be-
could, but it's
Yeah.
we might break more than
Yeah.
we can fix.
But essentially, if you look on the bow, and on the stern, you've got extra secondary battery turrets, which I think they're either 6-inch guns or 8-inch guns. It's kind of I noticed this blueprint has blast wave diagrams. Yes, you. Whenever you put something in front of a gun, you need to have blast wave diagrams to determine whether or not that thing will survive. Yeah, it's like if you fix the secondary guns, this is not a bad design, but the secondary guns ruin it in total. But also, Japan didn't really like it because Fujimoto, who designed it, it was very, very famous for having extremely tight designs, which means that essentially they're they're overweight, which resulted in a lot of their cruisers, which he was responsible for designing, needing to be rebuilt in the 1930s to have more strength and ability to not sink themselves.
6-Axis is saying an IGN version of Jean Bart.
Yesn't. Because it does have a turret on the rear. You can't see it. It's underneath the funnel. I kind of liked this concept in
Wait, it has a
1930.
turret underneath the funnel.
Yeah, so like the funnel is here, and it angles backwards, and there's a turret here. Yeah, so the
I
funnel...
appreciate you showing it to me, but I don't think that helps the stream much.
Yeah.
So, can we?
I don't think we
move
do.
this somehow?
I don't think we do mouse pointer stream, but
I'm still thinking how to show it.
yeah, it's faded. Yeah, it's
Well, basically, you see where the funnel is on the back, like next to the fold, basically.
Yeah, so if you look at the tower, you've got the big pagoda mast style tower, and then behind it you have a funnel that goes basically backwards at like 45 degrees, and then underneath the tail end of the funnel there's a plane catapult on top of a turret, and so it's 3x3, so there's it's it's a conventional-ish battleship design with a very cursed secondary armament.
Strife can use a laser pointer, but you will still not be able to see it.
Yeah, I found a colored version that looked like this yesterday. Yeah, the Japanese blueprints tend to be very hard to read, and very much like this.
We can't show the mouse cursor because it's not like it's just an image that we are streaming.
Yeah.
We don't stream like a screen. Like the website, it's easier.
Yeah. I don't have it pulled up on the Tokyo archives, and it would take hours to download because this is like an 11,000 by 11,000 picture. So it takes a very long time to load it.
11,000 pictures?
Like 11K.
Like 11 gigabytes. So.
11K resolution.
Oh, that's why it's so okay.
Yeah, it's huge.
I see.
Yeah, so I can't just pull it up on the website. I had to download them and downscale. So the
I see.
Hiraga submission into the competition was this design, which is essentially you have 10 guns in a Pensacola style arrangement. So you got twins, triples, twin, triple, triple, twin, forward and aft, and with the same weird funnel and tower design. This is a much more sensible battleship design, which is why it ended up winning the competition.
Why not add it to the game to show it? Yeah, it's not quite that easy.
Yeah.
It takes like a year to add that. So
one does not simply.
Yeah. Also, just move one of the webcams where you want to point at. We don't have webcams. We have like proper cameras,
Yeah,
so you
the-
would need to like pull focus and everything manually. Also not as easy.
Yeah, and
We're
they're on
very happy
tripods.
with where they are.
Yeah, yeah, they're on tripods, and they're more expensive than I'm willing to touch. And so this is the design that ended up winning the competition, and they actually made a model of it, which you can see here.
Most. Oh,
So they did make a model of it, and thankfully they took a picture of the model because I doubt the model survives.
that's
and so-
from when?
1930. So this is a quite clear photo for 1930.
It's kind of
so-
overexposed, I guess, just to see the contrast,
Yeah.
or actually have a lot of contrast.
Well, it's probably got one of those big flash light bulbs
Mm.
that explode whenever you use
I was
them.
also gonna ask, maybe it's something interesting, because if you saw the previous two blueprints, one was like traditional, like just paper and like nice pencil, and this one is like a negative basically.
Yeah. So this is so there are a few different types of blueprints. So U.S. blueprints are done blue with white, basically. It's blue paper with white white drawing. The Japanese ones tend to be black paper with white.
Okay.
And so the black is faded now. It's kind of gray. And we actually have another Japanese design that we'll go to soon. But like this is the one that designed the competition, and you can kind of see why it makes a whole lot more sense than whatever this monstrosity is. Yeah.
Well, we got IJN Jean Bart. We got Compact Yamato as a name.
IJ in Maine, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And so these were the ships designed to basically replace the Congos. It's like 29 knot ships, basically. So but back to Japan. Speaking of black on white, it's very, very, very difficult to see this blueprint. I'm kind of sorry, but the gist of this blueprint is it's located with the Furutaka design blueprints, but I think it's after Furutaka. Basically, they hear about what's happening with the Deutschland class cruisers that Germany was building in the late 1920s, and they also see Britain kind of built those weird courageous class battle cruiser thing, large light cruiser things, and so
Things.
why don't we do it on our own? And so they designed this 11,000 ton Kuma, basically. It's an 11,000 ton ship with three 30 centimeter guns. So they're 300, basically, it's got three single turrets with 305 millimeter guns or 300 millimeter guns. Yeah, and 140 millimeter secondary battery armament.
It's honestly a bit difficult to see on the.
It's really hard
blueprint.
to see,
It's
I'm
very
sorry.
faded. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically like a big Kuma hull with single cursed gun turrets. They kind of look like the Furutaka single gun turrets. And where's my notes on it? Basically, the notes on this ship basically give the summary. It's 11,000 tons with 45 caliber 30 centimeter guns. Either there's a version of this one version has 3. There's also a version where there's 4 guns. It's 36 knots, which is insanely fast, with 135,000 horsepower, which is insanely a lot of engine power for the 1920s, and 3 inches of armor. So the same armor as an Omaha class cruiser. So explodium. And the notes, when translated from Japanese into English, call it a well-balanced gun placement, which is a bit strange considering there's a gun on the bow, a gun in the middle, and a gun on the stern, which is technically well-balanced, but not exactly useful.
Well, they didn't claim it's useful.
Yeah, that's true. It is balanced.
I guess it was probably like some weird encounter where they were like, if only we would have had like an equally distributed amount of guns. And
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's quite a strange ship design. It's one of my favorite weirdos out there. Yeah. Curious, Blip, what was the thought behind the Yubari? I mean, what did they want to do with it? It's a CL, but it feels more like a destroyer. So the Yubari is part experiment, part filling up the treaty displacement limit or to their limit. Basically, with Yubari, they wanted to test welded hull construction as well as armor as part of your hull structure construction on a cruiser that wasn't going to be a vital cruiser. So they built a small cruiser using these experimental methods, and so that they could prove the concept for whenever they went forward with like the Mogamis. That's the story of Yubari. So let's see, but let's jump on over to France. So all these Japanese blueprints are courtesy of the University of Tokyo. They allow you to use it as long as you give them credit. So and they are located in the Kashiwa Library.
Yeah, and if you are courageous enough, you can go to their website. Don't know if you have the link, but otherwise, I guess peeps can ping you on Discord.
Yeah, I can give you the link on Discord.
And if you either speak Japanese or can read it, I guess. Speaking would be too easy.
Yeah, although there is a lot of English in the archives. It's just finding the English because the guy who designed this one, which is Yuzuru Hiraga, he was trained in Britain by British naval architects.
So a lot of the details and additional stats
are in English. Yeah.
Okay.
So and he even has some articles that are straight in English and things like that he wrote. It's really hard to read his handwriting, but he has quite good English.
I feel like that's just generally true for this time.
Yeah. So
okay, so once you navigate there, maybe you have somebody who knows Japanese, or maybe Google Translate can help you. You can actually access all of this really high quality. Of course, it is actual blueprints, so like we've seen, they are quite faded.
Yep.
They don't seem to be in the best condition, or I guess they're probably also a lot better in person. I can imagine it's a bit difficult to scan those.
Yep.
And yeah.
So let's move on to the wonderful world or whims of France. So I'm not going to be talking about French pre-dreadnoughts, but we can talk about. Oh, that's German, but this is very quintessentially French. The design is called Danton, but this is one of the Richelieu pre-designs called Richelieu Design 5 or Project 5. The core concept of which is having the main battery guns in the center of the ship. These renderings are done by a PC player named HMS Maid Nelson. They kindly gave me permission to use them. And also updated them for us so that we can see them here on the stream.
Actually, show them fully.
Yeah, and so you have this cursed main battery arrangement where you have the main battery guns from basically a Richelieu, so in the middle of the ship, with secondary guns and everything else elsewhere.
Le Y.
Le Y, yes.
Oui.
Y. Italy had an admiral who published some concepts, basically all about the maximization of protection. And so the purpose of this is to give the magazine spaces the maximum amount of protection you can. And in order to do that, you put them in the very middle of the ship, because that is the widest point in the ship, so it's the deepest into the ship, so it's the best protected against torpedoes, the best protected against shells. It saves weight because all your magazines are together in one space. If they hit you in the stern or the bow or whatever, there's no magazines there, so you don't have to worry about them exploding. So if you want a maximum protection battleship, this is the way to do it. Only problem is you can't shoot anything.
So for all the broadside enjoyers, we would need to add this to the game.
Yeah. So the approximate gun basically firing positions is basically that. You had the first turret, so the front turret had blind arcs that were 90 degrees forward, you cannot fire, and 50 degrees backwards, you cannot fire. Which is, that's almost half of your ship or like half of your compass directions you can't fire
Well, I mean, you got your secondaries.
Yeah. The reason that the second turret is super firing is because it gives you a little bit better firing angles than the front turret. Basically, the front turret has very limited firing angles, and the upper turrets have has better firing angles, but still not perfect. But another side advantage that this gives you is that your secondary and your anti-aircraft battery turrets get the best firing angles possible, which means that you're protected against anti-aircraft as best as you can be, as well as protected against enemy like destroyers and small ships with your secondary battery
Were
guns.
the secondaries you see in the front, for example, the bigger turrets, also dual purpose?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were designed to be dual purpose. As they were implemented in the Richelieu, they weren't very effective in a dual purpose role.
There was an attempt.
Yeah, there was an attempt, didn't really.
Yeah, for crossing the T, it would have probably been good design.
So wait, where's the funnel?
But-
The funnel's in the rear.
But
It's in the aft mast.
I mean, you see the black smoke in
yeah.
in this render.
So the funnel's back, basically in front of the rear.
Also at an angle, okay.
Yeah, like all the French designs of this era. You can't see it in this photo, but see it here.
No, there you can see it quite well.
Yeah. So the French didn't quite give up the weird ship designs from the pre-Dreadnought era, but we can respect them for actually going with something reasonable and something that looks good rather than this thing. But these wonderful renders are by HMS Made Nelson from the PCNA server. So, yeah. It's
Hey,
quite.
do you know how fast it would have been?
It would have been 30 knots or 30 maybe.
So actually
30
slower than the.
So it's like 30 to 32 knots and a little bit heavier. So I think it was 500. It was either 50 or 500 tons overweight in terms of, so it'd be 35,050 or 35,500 tons over.
So actually slower than the designs we were looking at earlier with like their 35 knots. And
But granted, this actually has armor.
fair.
Yeah.
Still quite risky that you can't really
Yeah. So it's going to be,
engage much.
yeah, this is one of the designs of all time.
Well, I guess it lives up to the stream's title.
Yeah. It's weird.
It do be weird, yeah.
But another weird oddball is basically, what if I told you that
Oh.
the U.S. torpedo battleships was not the worst offender,
Oh no.
and that the Kitakami is a punk? This
What are
thing.
we getting now? Oh, yeah.
This thing. So in 1913, 1913, Imperial Russian Navy sets out a design for, we want a torpedo cruiser. And we want it to be a big torpedo cruiser. Sorry, this is all in Cyrillic, so it's hard to read, unless you happen to be Sahelas, who can kind of read Cyrillic a little bit. This has 84 torpedo tubes. 84. And they're 450 millimeter torpedoes, so they are small torpedoes. They're all submerged torpedo tubes. But basically, like, imagine like the Tiger, but with 80 torpedoes. So each one of these holes in the side of the ship there.
When in the
Is a
World of
torpedo.
Warships? No. Just
Launcher.
no.
And the guns are, you have 12 180 millimeter guns. And I think it's a speed of 28 knots. 28 knots. And this is the second from the bottom. So it's one of the designs of all time.
Wait, does it actually still have main guns? No.
Yeah, it has. These are 7-inch 180 millimeter
It's
guns.
still proper.
Yeah, it's a proper cruiser. Basically, imagine Talon, but give it 84 torpedoes.
Well, basically, take Talon, split it like horizontally, put like couple decks of height in between, sandwich torpedo tubes in between. Were they actually fixed tubes, or could you actually move them?
They're fixed tubes.
Okay.
Yeah. So each one of these little bars here in the bottom picture.
So you had to aim with your whole ship.
Well, it'd
Because
be like
Kitakami actually had launchers, right? Like
it would be like
Turnable.
the gyro torps that we
Mhm.
have. So they would be like the wiggle torps.
Shima's nemesis. Yeah, it's like what Shima dreams of.
Yeah, this is twice a Kitakami.
Like we got Kitakami at home, Kitakami at home. Well,
Like,
even more than
no,
twice.
Kitakami is this at home.
Yeah, or that way. Yeah. I don't know. Still, I mean, Kitakami sounds
This is
compared to this, Kitakami sounds quite realistic.
yeah. This is one Kitakami on each side plus a Talon.
It's 86, right?
84.
84. Okay.
Kitakami is 40.
Yeah. Yeah, a nightmare final boss. Actually, we should he's currently on vacation. We should prepare some documents, like a fake page. Say like, hey, look at what we are going to add.
We did that to Robin once.
With what ship?
Habakkuk.
Oh.
So we actually
I remember.
we made a really deep file that spelled out "never going to give you up," and then the last file was had Habakkuk blueprints in it.
I mean, PC actually has like proper renders for Habakkuk.
Yeah.
There was some
It was
like
an
April Fool's
joke,
video
yeah.
basically. We're like, we're gonna have Habakkuk. Anybody who doesn't know it, it's a Pykrete ship basically. So it's like ice.
Yeah, it's an gigantic iceberg aircraft carrier, basically.
Which,
that-
to be fair, icebergs quite resistant to shells.
yeah, and Pykrete even more so.
Yeah.
There's
So
actually
it's basically a mixture of like sawdust or like fibers and mixed into ice,
yeah. And
which makes it really, really sturdy.
There's a famous anecdote where one of the British admirals, I think it was Admiral Mountbatten, not sure. Basically, they're in a board meeting. So you got all the bigwig admirals and politicians at a table at a board meeting and proposing this Habakkuk thing. And Admiral Mountbatten comes in with a block of Pykrete, sets it on the table, shoots it with a gun.
In the
In the boardroom. So like you're in a boardroom with like some of the most powerful men on the planet. Walk in with a gun, shoot it, and it bounces off the Pykrete and goes through Admiral King's pant leg. Admiral King, the most powerful man in the U.S. Navy, like basically almost gets killed by a British admiral.
Rotary powers, right? Effective presentation.
Yeah, it is crude but effective. So like Habakkuk is like actually they could do it. It could be done. But the thing is, by the time that they could do it, it would not be necessary. So, moving on from this,
I would like to get some like estimates on how long it would have taken until it melted.
I think there are some, but I'm not sure. But let's go on to a couple cursed carrier designs. So basically, before
Chat is still discussing the 84 torpedo tube cruiser.
yeah, like it's insane.
I like the idea of it's having a reload of 15 minutes. So basically, you shoot once.
Yeah, you would have to like only allow it to shoot once.
To be fair, also, you only need to shoot once.
Yeah,
Because how are you supposed to dodge that?
wall of skill.
Skill.
So speaking of carrier designs, so whenever we were getting to, basically this is 1920, so nobody
also
actually,
guns.
nobody actually knows how to build an aircraft carrier in 1920. So everybody's kind of doing weird things. This is the weird thing that the U.S. was thinking about doing. At first, it kind of looks normal. It's like it's a carrier thing that doesn't have an island or a bridge set up anywhere reasonable, which is normal for the time period. And then you look at, let me pull this up on Spring Styles. Give me a minute. And then you start looking at the bottom of the ship, or the bottom of this blueprint, where they have the engine layout. And you also look at the side of the ship, and it's like, wait a minute, there's no funnel. Where does the exhaust go?
Wait, yeah.
So let me
Don't tell me it was like in the middle, like in the center.
so let's pull it up here on Spring Styles so we can zoom in.
Was it below the deck?
So we look here. Midship section, boiler room, funnel. This is the flying off deck.
It was below the deck.
It was below the deck. And this is the second deck. So you're basically venting all of your boiler room into your second deck underneath the flight deck. So on the plus side, if it gets icing, you're never going to get ice on your flight deck because your flight deck's heated.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a feature. So like basically you're gonna and the smoke comes out the sides. Yeah, so it like basically fills up that area of the second deck in between the second deck and the flying off deck, and then goes out the side.
So how would you operate it? You would just need to run around with a gas mask all the time, or like?
Yeah, so you have your uptakes here, which are your funnels or your funnel outtakes, basically on the side of the ship here.
Oh wait.
Uptakes and passages. So it's also all the way from here. So basically,
the bridge is just like in the side.
Yeah, it's like right under the flight deck.
How do they see?
So your bridge would be heated too.
Oh.
As for seeing, you don't see.
So basically, the officers wouldn't have an issue.
Yeah. So this is your bridge here.
This is indeed more than weird.
Yeah, and of course you have your main battery 6-inch guns and twin turrets everywhere. So you got
Also below the deck.
1, 2, 3, 4 below the deck. Yeah, it's out of the way of the airplanes. That's actually fine.
Mm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you got 8 6-inch guns per side. Plenty of emergency boats for whenever your flight deck catches on fire from all the exhaust fumes. Yeah, this was not the greatest moment in American carrier design history, and we're glad that they decided to rebuild the Lexingtons because this would have been awful.
Can we just talk about somebody probably at least got paid to come up with this and was serious?
Yeah.
Like,
to be fair, every early carrier had exhaust problems. Like,
well, of course, it's
except
a
for
bit
the
difficult if you
Lexingtons,
can't put it like on the top where
Yeah.
you would usually put it. You have to completely redesign, rethink your whole design approach for ship. But still, like,
yeah, wasn't there carriers in World War II that had a side exhaust? Yes, side exhaust can be done and it can work. The IJN was the most prominent user of it. But the thing is that they had it in a sealed funnel that goes from the boiler out the side of the ship. They didn't vent it into one of the decks.
yeah, like, I don't get how that isn't like the first thought.
Yeah,
Like it's
just
not like
pipe it
a
outside.
Star Wars Death Star trench kind of thing where something can get in there and you are bad off. Like if something hits you in an aircraft carrier, you already have a different issue anyway.
yeah.
Yeah. Wait, it also had torpedo tubes?
Apparently so. I don't know where they are.
Somewhere.
So now we have a mission. We find the torpedo tubes, guys. Let's see. Main driving motors, main control, generator room. Well, I guess it says not shown. This deck. Torpedo tubes also on this deck. So
they would be somewhere.
yeah, probably side launchers, maybe fixed even.
Maybe like next to the guns. I don't know.
So let's see here. Main battery guns, torpedo tubes, 2 triple abaft water, so above water. So there would be 2 triple launchers for torpedoes somewhere. I don't know where.
Why not?
But yeah, I guess. Protective deck, 6-inch slope. That's actually quite extensive for a protective deck. That's surprising. 14 boilers, 34 or 32 and a half, 3/4 knots, quite a good speed. Cruising range of 10,000 miles. A reasonable carrier. It's 35,000 tons, bigger than anybody was really designing for the time period. But like, why? I don't know. But it's not the only weird carrier because we have one that they actually built. Voice cracked. Boom. Wolverine. This is a paddle wheel carrier.
Okay.
So basically, they had this situation during World War II where they were like, we need to train a whole lot of carrier pilots, but we don't want to use carriers that we need for combat to train our pilots because that's just wasting a carrier that could be doing something more useful. And so why don't we just take a paddle wheel steam like cruise ship from the Great Lakes and turn it into a carrier? And they did this twice with 2 carriers, the USS Sable and USS Wolverine. And so these are the only aircraft carriers that have ever operated in the Great Lakes.
So did they actually never use them on the ocean?
Yeah, no, they never went on the ocean. And so basically, because I don't think they would fit through the locks to get to the ocean. These were designed for the Great Lakes. And so they basically converted steam or paddle wheel steamships into carriers. And is that the one they put in the Great Lakes? Yeah, yeah. And
at that point, they had figured out the funnel issue.
Yeah, and so this is World War II. They had figured out funnels pretty well by then.
I mean, it's easy to judge now, but like,
yeah,
looking at this and the previous design, it's kind of like, I don't know. It sounds like the obvious thing to do.
Yeah, and so like this is just a training carrier. It doesn't have a hangar. It doesn't have armament or anything like that because it's in the Great Lakes. Submarines are not going to get there. Enemy aircraft is way too far away to worry about. You just put it in the Great Lakes and do training. So these swims were pretty slow. They're like 18 knots. It's a paddle wheel steamer. Like paddle wheel steamers haven't been a thing since the 1850s.
New Halloween skin, well, actually a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. Like they actually
the idea.
They actually don't look that bad.
Probably popular opinion, not unpopular opinion. Paddle wheel ships in general look really nice.
Yeah. And for defense against those dangerous Canadians, no doubt. Fun fact, the Great Lakes have been demilitarized since 1815.
No. They were helping the Canadians against the geese. The official Canadian Air Force, geese.
Indeed. And so these things were quite slow. The only thing that could really take off from them was the T6 Texan, or as the Navy called it, the FMJ Texan. And so, which is a quite common training airplane from this time period. Although it'd be kind of weird for Navy pilots because they would have qualified for flying in the T6 Texan and then qualified for their naval aircraft and then went back to the Texan to qualify for carrier takeoff. So it's kind of weird because they would get whiplash a little bit going from an actual fighter plane back to a trainer. But they could also manage to take off the FM2 Wildcat, which is the upgraded version of the Wildcat. Very underrated airplane.
Mobius is saying, shame it didn't survive. It would be a fun tourist attraction. You know what to do on Kickstarter now.
Fun factoid, the U.S. Navy sold these carriers. And they, so in 1945, they retired them from the Navy and put them on the open market. You could buy one of these for $50,000 in 1945 and have your own personal aircraft carrier.
I mean, somebody was just saying something about it being a casino.
Maybe before becoming a carrier.
Oh, okay. Possible, yeah.
Yeah, but
well, to be fair, like 50,000 for Warships sounds cheap, but keep in mind there was
in 45.
Yeah, like quite a long
time
ago.
They paid $250,000 for them.
That was actually a lot for the time. I mean, it's still cheap for a ship.
Yeah,
but
so,
then again, it's not really all that functional.
And they're old ships. They're like 30 years old by this point. So.
Yeah. We also just got a question because of the heating or lack thereof issue with the weird funnel configuration. Wasn't there a ship that used the steam from the catapults for the planes to heat the ship? I've read something like this, but must have probably been with later models as World War II CVs didn't have catapults, right? So it's basically 2 questions. 1, was that a thing? And 2, did they already have some experiments with catapults?
Steam has been used for heating in warships, even during World War II. Because, I mean, the entire thing is a steam kettle, so might as well.
Might use it.
Yeah, so I could see that being a thing. I don't know. There are some World War II carriers that did have catapults and did have steam where you would expect a catapult to be. Japanese carriers did not have catapults there, but they did actually have a steam pipe at the front of the flight deck. Basically, that on Japanese carriers you'll often see they have like an arrow pointing on the front of the flight deck, and at the center of that arrow there's actually a steam pipe that comes up and actually has a little steam vent, so you get visible steam out of it. And so what that tells pilots is that what is the wind direction off of the bow by an angle, because you can just compare it against the arrow shape with where the steam is blowing. So that was a thing, at least on Japanese carriers. but but that wasn't for a catapult. So maybe they were piping that. I have no idea. Yeah.
That's probably like we could make a whole episode about the trials of the first catapults on carriers. So I can imagine there are a lot of things that can go wrong.
Yep.
All right.
You launch the landing gear, not the aircraft.
It's like in a cartoon, like the bottom just gets ripped off and catapulted away, and the top stays there.
Like when somebody pulls the tablecloth off, and then all the
exactly.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, no, they sold these after the war, but the people who bought them ended up just scrapping them for money. So nobody had their own private aircraft carrier, which is unfortunate because that should have been a thing.
So it's not another Pepsi story.
No, it's not a Pepsi story, unfortunately. So
using a flag is cheaper this year wind direction. I was also just thinking that, like, what's the advantage of steam over a flag?
You can put steam in front of a pilot, and you can't put a flag in front of a pilot because they'll fly into the flag.
No, but yeah, I mean, you could also put it like at the side of the flight deck or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like
I don't
for
know.
example, for this design, there was
I guess a flag
the bridge anyway in the funnel, so like.
No, it's not the funnel. It's at the front of the flight deck. But also you wouldn't really be able to see over the nose of your plane. So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I guess it was easier to like look at it while you're also approaching instead of having to look like at a different part of the ship, which is also further. Makes sense.
So I don't know. That's Wolverine, and I've got two more here.
I mean, it's technically a 7. We can do longer if you want to.
We got two more. We can do this pretty quick.
Yeah, let's do that.
So this I pulled from the Warship International Volume 1. This is Dr. Junkers of like Junkers dive bomber fame. Basically Junkers, yes, Junkers of Junkers aircraft fame. Designed a battleship at one point. It's not a very good battleship design, but the whole purpose of this battleship design was basically to be able to show like, hey, we can take the same specifications as the Koenig class battleship, add a turret if we replace the engines with my new fancy diesel engine that I designed, and basically make a diesel battleship in 1912. Diesel propulsion was not that far along yet, but essentially this was just like kind of a promotion of, hey, diesel propulsion is coming. Diesel propulsion is coming. And so this is just a private design, not a naval design. So this is kind of excessively long diesel crankshafts as well. Can't really see it here, but they like basically this thing would vibrate like anything else. And also the secondary armament is 190 millimeter guns, which was very much out of fashion for the time.
So, fun fact, what it says on top is Wurf eines 26,000 Tonnen Linienschiffs, designed for 26,000 ton ship of the line.
Yep.
So
ships of the line.
Just fits the stream title really well. So it was literally meant to, quite literally sail on a line.
Yep.
To have several of these in one long line, one long group.
Yep. So
then the armor at least makes sense.
Yeah, like it's not the worst design ever, but basically the main problem with it is that it would just shake itself into oblivion.
So it was wacky, not for the overall design, but for the propulsion.
Yep.
Could have replaced it with something more sensible and might have made sense. It's also extremely symmetrical.
Yeah, like it's very much like if it's going backwards or is it going forward. Which battleship design had the most turrets? Design would be the Canada battleship, which is more of a meme than an actual design. But in terms of ships that were actually built, it's going to be Agincourt. And then our last design of the night is my favorite, USS Possible, or proposed battleship Possible. There is actually there are two sister designs that there are two sister designs for this that were also called feasible and probable. And then this was the possible. This is the only design that survives. We only have like vague sketches of the other two. And
Just to cover that name real quick, did they know that it makes no sense and they just made a design to like show how it would look like if they were to have that configuration with the middle tower also being able to shoot to the front?
Yeah, this is basically like, this is theoretically possible.
So in a way, this is a proof of concept, but also one of the earliest memes.
Yeah. See if I can find it real quick. Where's possible at?
We should add this.
I want this. I really do want this. So here we've got it on the online page here. So you can zoom in a little bit.
That looks top heavy. Yeah, it kind of does.
It looks top heavy, and then you realize it doesn't have any superstructure.
Yeah.
It has 2 conning towers. That's it.
Wait, where was the bridge?
So these are basically conning towers, and these would be your bridge. So one here and one here.
Would that even work? Like, could it even shoot above it? Because you're basically directly in the blast, like in the shockwave.
Well, you're in an 18-inch armored or thick armored conning tower. I don't really think you care about blast effects.
Yeah, but you still need to somehow like be able to look outside.
We have like slits and stuff like this.
Mm.
Like, it would be, and you have an 18-inch barbette on this tall T-posing turret. These are 16-inch guns.
I'm just imagining like a side view, like basically crossing a T. It would just look at you. It's like,
just, T-pose.
Just needs like 2 googly eyes next to it.
Just put it on the front of every turret. Oh, God.
We need to get this in the game. It looks so wonky.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes no sense. It would probably be like tier 2 or tier 3 or something.
Yeah. Did the center turret rotate 360 degrees? Yes. It's a 360-degree turret.
That's the whole thing. The possible was around with this design, I suppose.
Yeah, but it gets more cursed the closer you look at it.
Oh.
And so you realize that, okay, these are kind of normal measurements. 48,000 tons in 1912. Okay. That's huge, but, okay. 10 16-inch guns, 12 torpedo tubes submerged. Okay. Secondary battery, 28 5-inch guns. All but 2 of these are behind armor. Boilers number, none. No boilers. Internal combustion engines for 50,000 horsepower in 1912. So I guess these would be diesel engines. Could be gasoline, but probably diesel.
Didn't we just establish that that doesn't really work?
That doesn't work in 1912.
Yeah.
But you could do it. You should not do it. 22 knots, okay. Wait, where's the funnels at again?
Are they to the side?
The funnels are basically so you got machinery. Basically, the funnels are out the side and out the top actually.
It's not too bad, I guess.
And then you look at the belt armor arrangement. So here's the cross section armor arrangement, and that's your main belt, angled inwards. So this is kind of what's called the Ironsides armor concept of the early 1910s. The U.S. Navy was kind of exploring heavy bracketing or web framing. And so you have this giant armor belt that's 16 inches thick, and then angled at, basically 45 degrees. But so if you have any kind of long range fire, that's just going to plunge and go straight into that. Fun times ahead, but if you're at close range, it's fantastic. It works great. You even have a turtleback.
Chat just suggested, like regarding the smokestacks for the funnels, just have it go through the turret for the memes.
Yeah,
It's like in the center.
Oh my God. Yeah, and
Oh, great.
but also you have
I mean, jokes aside, for the armor, experimenting around, like, yeah, why not?
yeah.
That's probably the least cursed of all of this. And
Yeah.
high bin, by the way.
And then you look back here, and it's got five loss of flash drive. Sorry, 5 propeller shafts.
Was it my flash drive?
Yeah, sorry. Got 5 propeller shafts and a torpedo launcher in between 2 of them.
Wait.
Why? Why is there a torpedo right next to a propeller shaft? This is just bad. That's all kinds of bad news right there. Why?
Yeah, like you were saying, the more you look at it,
the more cursed it gets. Yes. So you got 5 propeller shafts, which is just weird because it's an odd number of propeller shafts. So each one of these is going to have 10,000 horsepower on it from an internal combustion engine of some kind that's not exhausted anywhere.
magic.
5-inch guns protected with 16 inches of belt armor. 16 inches. There are 10 5-inch guns protected in the casemate battery. Okay. Torpedo and dynamo rooms. Okay. Torpedo and dynamo rooms. Torpedo rooms. It's just, why? I have a mighty need, but why? And 12,000 miles range, which would probably only be possible with diesel. It's just, why?
It lives up to its name. Possible.
Who designed these things? I don't know, but I assume that there's probably a smoky room involved and a bunch of people pontificating. You know what would be a really good idea? We angled that belt so when we get close to the enemy, it bounces the shells upwards.
It's coal-fired too, it looks like. I mean, it can't be if it doesn't have any boilers.
Oil fuel supply. The coal has a slash through it. So, yeah.
Yeah, right. The ship was renamed on lunch. I present the USS Insanity. Lots of scotch. Yes, only scotch.
Yeah. Well, it's 1912, so it's before the Prohibition, so they could be drinking anything. I think even legally they could be drinking
Original
absinthe.
Coca-Cola.
Original Coca-Cola. I don't remember when that was changed.
I have no idea when Coca-Cola was invented, honestly, but...
Yeah. Is it 1899 Coca-Cola? Oh, God.
Still the good stuff.
Yeah, it would be invulnerable to HE damage. Like, what part of this is not armored?
I think that's the
The
whole
top
point.
of the bow and the top of the stern. That's it. Everything else.
What was actually the top armor for the barbettes?
For the barbettes?
Because it only says the side armor is really thick, right?
Let's see. Barbettes, heavy part, light parts, 3 inches. So I guess 3 inches would be the top part, or maybe the back. Nope, back says 9 inches there. So I guess the top of the barbette or top of the turrets would probably be 3 inches.
So yeah, maybe.
Also, I
Maybe
feel
you can do
sorry for the guy
something
that
with
has to
it.
man this gun.
Which gun?
This gun.
Yeah, I don't
Somebody
think
has to be standing out there to man.
you would use that.
Which, I mean, I guess that's only a problem if you're firing forward or backwards.
You would
But-
probably just not have somebody there if you're
Yeah.
firing forward.
Yeah.
What is it even supposed to be? Like additional secondaries?
Yeah,
'Cause it's
those
quite
are-
large
yeah,
for AA.
Yeah, that's additional secondary armament. Got to put it somewhere, I guess.
It's also like the whole concept is everything is armored,
Yeah.
like really armored. And then there's this one guy, actually
Yeah.
two.
Yeah. It's, how can it have have any boilers? Internal combustion. So I guess probably diesel propulsion for 50,000 horsepower in 1912. Which, mind you, we go to the Admiral Graf Spee. This is 1930 or 34, and only has 53,000 horsepower in diesel propulsion. 20 years later.
But in
look-
comparison, this one was also a thing
Yeah, this one was actually built and the engines actually did work.
and worked. Yeah.
And so it's 20 years of diesel development. Diesel had just barely started becoming a thing in the 1910s. So internal combustion engines as a realistic concept had only really come into play in the 1900s, or in the 1890s. So this is only 20 years after horseless carriages.
I mean, if you compare to that, it's crazy how far technology got in just 30 years. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was definitely a good way. It was the last one, right?
Yeah. That's
Yeah, that was definitely a good way to end it. And I'm not the most knowledgeable about history, but I can think of quite some more designs. So you could probably do something like this.
Oh yeah.
Next
There-
year again.
There's so
not
much
too
more.
soon.
Like, and
But
there's
so much, yeah.
there's stuff I wanted to include, but really didn't have any images to use. So maybe I could work with or talk with like Zoli, who's like Zoli is really well known online for like basically taking blueprints and then making his own versions and making them clear and legible and easy to read on shipbucket.com.
Yeah, so
So-
there will probably be a part 2 at some point. I would say we could make it like a yearly thing, have enough content.
Yeah, we could do a yearly
Yeah.
like a happy December. His weird or April 1st even.
Actually, April 1st would be good.
You know.
We could also just stay completely quiet and like discuss random ships, and one of the ships actually getting at us.
Oh God.
Just jokes aside, that would not be enough time to like plan that now, but still,
Yeah.
would be funny.
So out of all of these designs, which would you want most or is most likely to show up in Legends? Well, the one I want most is possible, like easily.
Let's split it in two. First, which one is most likely to show up in Legends? Maybe this one. Maybe.
Hmm.
I mean, the French one is doable. It makes no sense, but
Yeah.
it's doable.
Let's see.
We already have quite some parts for it, technically. Yeah, we actually said we can do some Q&A in between, but we didn't really do too much
Yeah.
Q&A.
That's
Sorry,
why-
guys, we just got...
Most likely would probably be the Hiraga Congo replacement. Would be my guess. Because like that's a reasonable design. It makes sense. It's not a bad design. It's just treaties happened and it never got built. So that
Yeah,
I could
so-
see that.
And the second question, you first. Which one would you like? Like, even
Possible.
if it's not possible?
Even if it's not possible,
Like any of the wacky designs? Or would it be possible?
it would be possible.
Okay.
Like
I mean, after seeing this one now, I would agree.
I
It
love
looks
it.
good, and it could actually work. It might even be OP.
It would like you would have to make it legendary. just to balance it. It's 22 knots, so it's slow as like a Colorado. But
But even on legendary, like it would be just such a weird ship.
like it'd be high, like you could not damage it with high explosive.
Best thing, we add possible and this weird Russian design with the 84 torpedoes.
Possible versus
The
84
only
torpedoes.
mode is like 1v1. Yeah, I mean, this one would be fun. I still want to see like how wacky this like weird submarine cruiser thingy is. Again, guys, we don't have any plans for submarines right now. Don't be worried. We are not adding a submarine hybrid cruiser carrier thingy yet.
So,
But yeah.
yeah. MS
I have
Slandia
a
had
feasible way to
diesel-
implement submarines into legends, make them completely random and AI only, even in standard mode. Yeah? Completely random and in AI. Like how completely random? Like
Sorry, what?
I don't get that part. But AI only, yeah, I mean, would be an option. We'll surely get to some point where we're asking us the question, do we want these or not? And it's like, guys, we will see.
Yeah.
There are many, many different ways what we could do and what we want to do in Legends. We have a lot of cool ideas for maybe some possible game modes, even brawls. We had some cool ideas just to make more out of that. There are so many things that are in theory possible. The main issue is just having the time to develop it all. The dev team is not just two guys in a chat, and it takes a really long time. We have the advantage that we can get a lot of models that were already made for PC, even though we do also make stuff that is exclusive to our game. But for ships, we have a couple, like up to 7 now
Something like this, yeah.
that PC doesn't have. And we can also always tweak it, of course, but also many other things. And the UI, the battle HUD, like all the stuff is very custom as well. So we'll see what the future brings us.
Indeed. Yeah. So somebody mentioned MS Slandia had diesel propulsion in 1912. So she was kind of the first diesel ship, but like she only had 1,200 horsepower. So we're talking 50 times that. in
Very
1912.
realistic.
So technically speaking, yes, diesel propulsion is possible. Realistically speaking, diesel propulsion is not at a stage yet where you can put it into a battleship or warship. really in 1912s. You know,
Wait, what's the discussion? A year? What is a year? Probably not last gen. The whole discussion where we're already turning this into kind of a Q&A anyway.
Yep.
The whole discussion with like improvements for next gen or current gen. I mean, it's also already 3 years old now. The issue is we still have a lot of players who are playing on Xbox One, on PS4, and it just doesn't make sense for us to make features that a big part of the player base cannot use, or even worse, gives them an advantage if they have newer hardware. That's not something we want. Like, that is already somewhat a thing, maybe with some effects or here and there, or like you can make out more detail if you're playing on a 4K screen, something like that. But that's small details. But adding like full features that are only available on current gen,
Yep.
that's something we can talk about when we have like 99% of our players playing in the newer consoles. And like, of course, there will be some cutoff. I think next year already there should be less support. I forgot which one it was. I don't want to say something wrong, but one of the consoles, like Xbox or Xbox One or PS4, is going to have end of life or something like that in a year or two. I heard. I didn't actually check it out. I was just talking to a colleague about it recently, who said that it was apparently in the news.
Yeah.
So we will have to see what that says for players as well. I doubt there will be just like a cutoff, like, oh yeah, you can't play online now anymore.
Yeah, it'll probably just be like no more future game support, basically.
That and like no more like new features, redoing the UI, stuff like that for the console. That's the pro and the con for consoles. They last quite a long time. You can enjoy them quite a long time. But of course, it hinders future development quite a bit if you are still supporting old ones. And like, doesn't make sense for us to invest too much time into the new consoles if a lot of our players can't use it.
Yep.
That said, we are still working on 4K 60 FPS for PlayStation. We are working on both for the old ones, also for the new ones, on further optimization. We are reworking our whole UI bit by bit. That comes with two pluses. One is optimizing it, and two is adding new features, new things. You might see something soon. We have patch notes this week, so we'll see what we are adding. And Legends Mobile coming along for iOS. Legends Mobile is on iOS, but it's in the App Store, and Apple does not have any side loading, so we can't give you an APK like Android does. Though the EU is apparently trying to change that, so we will see when that's going to come into effect. Right now for iOS you need to be in Canada and the Philippines, France or Brazil, and then it's in the store.
Yep.
All right.
So,
I know there were some questions that were something else than is collaboration XYZ coming, or is ship XYZ coming, or when is XYZ coming. These questions we can never answer on stream, or almost never. So really, you don't really have to ask them. You will probably not get an answer to them. I'm sorry, but if we didn't announce something already, it's very unlikely we can talk about it. For some other questions that were more legit and answerable, sorry, we couldn't get to all of them. We wanted to really focus on the historical part, and I think you had a lot of fun, or at least I hope you had a lot of fun. We certainly did.
Yep.
The next stream is going to be back to normal stream. No, actually, the next stream is going to be the update stream next Monday.
Yep.
But we will definitely have a lot of Q&A there. We will go through all the new content. If you have any other questions in the meantime, ask it on Reddit, ask it on our Discord. There's a dedicated Ask the Team channel. But please keep in mind, just because you have a question doesn't mean it's not feedback. So if you have some feedback, put it in the feedback channel instead. Don't put feedback as formulate feedback as a question. It doesn't really make much sense. But just saw this recently quite a lot, happening quite a lot. So that's why I'm saying that. And yes, patch note day is Thursday if everything goes right, which probably, hopefully does. Keep an eye out on our socials. Keep an eye out on YouTube. You know the drill. We usually release some videos and some footage early. And yeah.
Yeah.
That said, next Ship Up a Line stream probably in like a couple of months from now, 3 months, something like this. So maybe February, March. We'll have to see what we will do.
Yep.
If you have any cool ideas, spam this guy.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be what it'll be yet. We'll probably cover a ship line. I don't know. Maybe British battlecruisers, Japanese carriers.
I'll have to see. Maybe something that we are going to release around that time. I have to
Maybe.
see what it lines up with.
Yeah.
All right. That said, have a great start in the week,
Mhm.
into the week, and yeah, see you probably soon.
Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you for listening and seeing some weird ships. I'm sure I missed some that you thought should have been here, but we can make this a recurring weird ships of the line stream, of course. And also go check out Drakenifel's French pre-dreadnought video because all of those are weird ships, and they like being. Let's say the French. Nobody copies the French, and the French copy no one. This is just the way it is. And but yeah, so thank you for coming. Have a great week. We will see you next time.
Bye bye.